It's July 21st, 2:54. We are just off of downtown Evanston here in the Merrick Rose Garden with a fountain. This is a historic place, and we're going to do a little dialogue here test with Mark White with the Coaccession technology patent, business process patent. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine today, Fred. Thank you.
We're just testing this as a possible lighting scope effect background for discussion on Coaccession. Before we get into the real heavy stuff relating to your patent, could you just provide a little contextual background of you, your background? And
well, I'm a PhD in finance, and I studied with Vernon Smith when I was at University of Arizona. Vernon Smith had a specialty in experimental economics, and he was very interested in experimental economics because it allowed him to test different ideas in marketplaces he could control. So he could invent different kinds of securities and see how that would affect people's behavior. He could invent different trading rules and see how that would affect people's behavior. And he found that with the right institutions, you'd call it, markets could work better. With bad institutions, markets could work worse. And so he, in a sense, had me trained to think somewhat flexibly about the rules and say, well, if we had different rules, we might be able to have more effective marketplaces. And as I considered a problem, a social problem, a fight between archaeologists and collectors about collections. The archaeologists said that if collectors purchase antiquities, they stimulate looting and ruin archaeological sites, and so they wanted to ban collecting. The collectors said, well, we don't want to stimulate looting, we want to get good artifacts. So if you would sell your artifacts to us after you've done your initial research and let us own these artifacts, then they'd be safe and you could get access to them at a later date. Well, the problem that the archaeologists have is they want to have things in the museum. They want to have control over them. And it occurred to me that, well, if they could share the ownership of the object, so if the museum was able to maintain control, but the collector had possession, then this new arrangement could work and keep them happy. Well, I started looking to find out what you call this in order to write an op-ed and say, hey, you guys should share. If you share it, you got a solution to this big problem. You can stop fighting with each other and start rescuing knowledge. Well, I looked for the name of this arrangement, and I looked and I looked and I looked, and I'm a pretty good researcher, and I could not find the name of this arrangement.
Anything in the broad record of financial research or
in
writings
legal
or
research?
Okay.
Because it was mainly in legal research, and I got turned. I started reading up on divided titles. Read some papers by some experts, and said, "This is original." And I figured, well, business method patents are an option today. So I applied for a business method patent, and when I got the patent, I called the experts who'd written these papers on divided titles. They said they never heard of anything like it, and that it was quite ingenious, a real good solution to that problem. Beyond the solution to that problem, it solves a number of other problems. As a fundraising tool for museums that have permanent collections where they can't sell off the objects to raise funds, it will help museums solve at least a money problem. And if they're selling things out of their basement, it solves a money problem and a storage problem, because the things in the basement can be perfectly safe in a collector's house. Just like the antiquities collector keeping a museum antiquity in his home he's going to take very good care of it. He owns it.
Yeah.
He doesn't own all the rights to it. He has certain obligations to the museum because of the structure of coaccession.
And that's the term we're going to elaborate is coaccession.
Yeah.
Not going to go all the details, but we're providing sort of an overview, conversational overview in this first venture. We're going to wrap it up in this first phase, Mark, but coaccession in effect allows for a different form of use, of ownership, of property, we're going to talk about the term heirlooms.
Right. It's a new division of rights.
New division of rights.
And it lets one title have one right, the right of possession, another title have all the other rights, including the right to modify and the right to display. And including all other rights, but in particular modification means that if you've got one of these objects in your home, in your collection, you have to get the museum's permission before you try to restore it or even do a deep cleaning.
Okay.
So the museum knows the condition they give it to you in won't change unless you get the museum's permission.
Okay, just to sum this up, to me, when I've reviewed this could potentially be an incredible big bang form of financial instrument. It could radically open up and change the whole nature and scope of articles of antiquity, of the masters of art, public art and private art, inside of museums, outside of museums, in effect make a public tradable marketplace that will unlock the wealth in our world that's hidden.
Because when a museum doesn't take something in its basement and put it into a collector's home, when it takes something on its wall and just sells this right of possession as a financial investment rather than as something that immediately gives you possession and lets you enjoy it in your home, you have the basis for a title which you can divide into multiple units. So, for example, the Art Institute of Chicago.
The metaphor, we'll go into section 2. What we're talking about here is basically turning the world into a veritable garden, right?
Well,
just like this, isn't it? We're sowing and planting and tilling new fields of ownership, new fields of the receipt.
We're creating a new
sharing.
We're creating a new institution.
Okay.
That lets
the waters of life flow.
mobilize the value of their wealth. They've got cultural wealth and financial wealth.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up.
They don't give up the cultural wealth, but they do use the financial wealth in order to further their mission. Okay,
I'm going to just pan over here to the towers of St. Mary's Church and the construction in the background of Evanston here in the Merrick Rose Garden. Beautiful, beautiful day, July 21st. We're going to go into more detail in our continuing series with Mark White. This is just a dub. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.